There are numerous moves that deal a preset or fixed amount of damage, either depending on the user's level like Seismic Toss, or moves like Dragon Rage doing a fixed 40 damage. And today I'm going to be beating Fire Red with only these types of moves. Due to the lower HP of everything in the early game, this should be pretty straightforward, but later in the game against fully evolved beefcakes will be troublesome. How will we deal with them? Well, like and subscribe, become a member, and without further ado, let's jump into the challenge. Starting with Charmander and capturing a Mankey once I get Pokeballs, training these both up in Viridian Forest before the first gym to be able to get our first usable moves of the run in both Dragon Rage and Seismic Toss. The big issue with this, however, is that Mankey learns its move at level 26, and Charmander's is at level 43. This also means we have to stop Charmander's evolution each time, as if it evolves into Charmeleon or Charizard, it will learn Dragon Rage later at level 48 or 54 respectively. Training in Viridian Forest does give us a lot of good EV training, however, specifically in defense and HP, meaning we will outlive our opponents. And with moves that will start to do less and less over time, this is extremely important. Destroying various caterpillars and cocoons for hours on end obviously gets tiring and annoying, and after 6 hours I did end up using rare candies because I felt our EVs were getting maxed out at this stage. Charmander learns Dragon Rage, a move that does a fixed 40 HP of damage each time, and Mankey gets Seismic Toss, which does damage equal to the user's level, meaning at level 100, it will do 100 damage. Charmander also evolves into Charmeleon, and even with this massive level gap over Brock, his Pokemon may still not be one-shot, but this is only if they have over 40 HP, which they don't, so we win the first badge after hours of being surrounded by trees. Carrying on from the gym, I get a Magikarp from the salesman and use my funny rare candies to evolve it into Gyarados, where at level 25 it will learn Dragon Rage, becoming our second user of the move. Gyarados with Intimidate will certainly add a new layer of help to our team to outlast some of the later trainers, lowering their attack stat upon entering the battle. Running through Mount Moon with Dragon Rage is pretty annoying, however, with only 10 PP, and even Seismic Toss, which is leaving our foes on slivers of health now. Getting to Cerulean and facing Misty, and the level power creep is starting to show its ugly head, as her team outlive a lone Dragon Rage, obviously having 41 HP or above, meaning battles will obviously be a bit more dangerous later down the line, especially with more PP uses making our moves run out quicker, and the opponents having more chances to attack, which is why we turbo loaded in defense EVs. We do get the second badge, however, without much trouble, but this is going to get tough carrying on. Once we get the HM cut, we will be able to add another Seismic Toss user for the team, but we have to travel to the Ester Sand first, blasting past the rival on the Nugget Bridge, and evolving Mankey into Primeape. After stealing the boat ticket from Bill, I can battle the rival again, and win again. Nothing more to say here as we help the captain and he sails off never to be seen again, taking us to the Lieutenant Surge battle. And this battle is the turning point for both gym leaders and trainers. No, not because Charizard is part flying type in Electric Gym, but because this Pokemon don't fate in a single hit to Dragon Rage. Pokemon from now on will all start having 41 HP and above, which is disgusting and horrid. This game is literally unplayable, why are we even doing this? But thankfully we are very lucky in the fact that we are over leveled for this stage of the game. But when will this start to change? This road to Celadon is where we can make numerous captures with eligible moves for the run, giving a rundown on the options starting with Voltorb and Magnemite, who both have Sonic Boom, which does a fixed 20 damage. A terrible move this late in the game, and even at the start of the game it's still pretty bad. But the added option of Magnemite's resistant steel typing, or Voltorb's chance to paralyze the opponent with static, makes them somewhat viable, but only just. Dratini is available in the game corner with Dragon Rage, and it will eventually become the bulky Dragonite. But until that time, at level 55, it's really difficult to train even without the move restrictions. Machop has Seismic Toss, but we already have a Primeape, so 2 fighting types is not really a great option for this game. But we can get a Ghastly with Nightshade, which is basically a ghost type Seismic Toss, and the only Pokemon in the main story to be able to learn this move. There's also Pinsir with Seismic Toss, but that's a version exclusive, so I'm not able to get it. Out of these, I added Voltorb and Ghastly to my team, with Dratini being added once I had enough coins from the game corner. This involves me stealing money from the mob by defeating Giovanni, and bullying our hometown dork in the rival. Using the Sylph Scope in Pokemon Tower is where I caught the Ghastly, but replaced it immediately after finding a Wild Haunter instead. Clearing the tower from Team Rocket, who want to steal from the graves or get a Cubone or something. I don't really know why they're in this tower. And then go to battle Erica. Charizard resists all of the grass moves and is normally a great option against a grass type gym being both fire and flying type. But in this run we just have to rely on being so overleveled that we can survive an oncoming onslaught of status moves before taking out her team and winning the Rainbow Badge. Going into the open world aspect of Kanto, being able to open up all the gyms and train all of these new team members. At this stage, I made the decision to give myself the EXP share and the lucky egg, as it would make things easier for me when training. And at this stage of the game is where you can normally get them legally with the EXP share from one of Professor Oak's aides after registering 50 Pokemon in the Pokedex. And the lucky egg being obtained after catching a Chansey in the Safari Zone and praying to whatever deity you worship to that it is holding one. Obviously I did both of these, getting the story progression HMs from the Safari Zone, evolving Dratini into Dragonair with it learning Dragon Rage, and making a detour to Pewter City, as this is where you can meet a move tutor to teach something Seismic Toss. Doing so with Charizard to become our first and only Pokemon with 2 usable moves in the run. But if I did actually catch a Chansey, I could have channeled Gen 4 OU and taught it Seismic Toss and evolved it. But I didn't want to do that, as Fire Red and Leaf Green made the genius decision, as when Pokemon like Chansey and Golbat try to evolve, they just don't for some reason. Getting these items really made me feel a lot better about going through all these trainer-filled routes and areas, grinding up the team, and even evolving Voltorb into Electrode in the Silphco building, and then battling the rival, who's supposed to be an extremely tough challenge at this point of the game to make sure you're ready to face Giovanni. Which is kind of a stupid story concept, by the way. Like, just battle him yourself if you think you're strong enough. Are you on their side? Why are you slowing me down? But regardless, he throws the battle by not attacking with Blastoise. I mean, I've already done a pacifist run in Fire Red and Leaf Green, Gary. You're a bit late to the party. Surprisingly, Giovanni was much more troublesome, as not only did his Pokemon want to attack, but the power on Dragon Rage is being caught up on, getting less and less useful. That's something we have to figure out how to work around as we do the Kanto Gym Gauntlet. Starting with Koga, and our Haunter resists poison moves via its ghost and poison typing, and cannot be poisoned itself. Taking out Coughing number 1, and his annoying minimizing Muck, before eventually going down itself as the damage piles up, falling to the second Coughing. Using Gyarados for Dragon Rage obviously leaves Coughing on a sliver, before it's eventually taken out, and avoiding toxic damage against his last Pokemon Wheezing was pivotal, as this allows us to win with a few more Dragon Rages. Haunter really made that gym a lot easier, but it won't be much use against the next gym. And I won't be using Primeape either, as it's time to battle the Psychic leader Sabrina, and her team may have poor defense stats, but that means nothing in the eyes of fixed HP damage. Using Seismic Toss on Charizard is the best play, as it is over level 40, meaning we will do more damage than a Dragon Rage. Kadabra and Mr. Mime may have been taken out with 2 Seismic Toss each, but Venomoth lives in the red because of course it does. Everything does in this blimmin' run. I send in Haunter for some Nightshade damage, forgetting that Haunter is weak to psychic moves at the time, then sending back in Gyarados. Alakazam comes in after Venomoth is taken out, and Alakazam just decides to heal numerous times as we continue to whittle it down with Dragon Rage, eventually taking it out to win the badge. Now that wasn't as bad as I thought, mainly because Alakazam just wanted to boost with Calm Mind, and rather than using those boosts to take out my entire team, it just decided to use Recover and get healed instead. After going through the Pokemon Mansion, where even experiments like this challenge are deemed unethical, we can battle Blaine. We get him to waste Hyper Potions on his first Pokemon as Haunter gets knocked out after being bitten. How you bite a paranormal entity, I have no idea. Ponyta takes a bit longer to take out since not only does it get healed, but it also uses Bounce, meaning it has a free turn of no damage just to waste my time a bit further. Rapidash has Bounce also, meaning Primeape isn't much used here like the last gym seeing as it's a flying type move. But Charizard can do the business much like in the anime against Blaine, minus the Magmar of course, that would be a cool Pokemon to add to his team. The Charizard is now really low on health because of some critical hits against it. Arcanine is taken into the yellow, while Charizard is taken into the afterlife with Haunter. Well, Haunter was there regardless, seeing as it's a ghost, but at least he has a friend now. Gyarados comes in and intimidates the Arcanine, before having the fantastic idea to leave Arcanine on 1 HP, before taking it out because Blaine already used all his healing items, to give us the penultimate badge. and going to battle Giovanni, who's the last gym leader, spoiler alert for this very old game, and it's a funny battle, as his battle in Silphco was actually more difficult than this. We lead with Haunter against his Rhyhorn, and it may have got knocked out with a Rock Blast, which is probably the only move it can use against Haunter, but we used up one of Giovanni's healing turns, as Gyarados comes in and takes out not only the Rhyhorn, but the second Rhyhorn as well, the Ace Rhyhorn, which is really bizarre for him to have. Why does he have two Rhyhorns? Gyarados also beats the Dugtrio after it slashes us with its very visible claws. But Gyarados cannot last long against the Nidoqueen. I'm sure a lot of you would be in the same position, as Charizard and Dragonair combine to complete a Regicide against the Monarchs, to take the crown in the final gym battle. I'm quite impressed with that victory line then. It went kinda hard. Now time for the end game, and if you've watched my channel for more than 5 minutes, you'll realise that I am not very clever. The reason this time is that I could have utilised Meowth. Now Meowth does not learn any fixed damage moves, but it does have the ability Pickup, which activates outside of battle, allowing us to get numerous items like PP ups or rare candies. This means in theory, we could have maximum PP on all our moves and a near infinite supply of rare candies to level ourselves up. And I gave myself these items, like I did with the EXP share and Lucky Egg, just to make this run a little bit smoother at the end. This has raised moves to their fullest potential, including Seismic Toss going from 20 PP to 32. Also using these hypothetical rare candies to level up the team, including evolving Dragonair into Dragonite, completing the team, and going in to face the Pokemon League. Lorelei's team have high defense and HP stats, thus are extremely bulky, almost as big and bulky as her chest. Hey, don't look at me like that. The Pokemon Origins anime literally has jiggle physics, and have you seen her sprite? This is the work of the horniest Japanese office worker you have ever seen, and they wonder why their fertility rates are down. Her team took massive chunks out of mine, with Electrode even getting some screen time, but also does eventually faint because some ice fell on its head. It literally dies to hail. Haunter also gets hit with not only Sleep, but Attraction, and then Freeze. Everything but the Confusion status against the Jinx, and it probably got hit by some hail as well. Her team does fall eventually, but my entire team is pretty much dead. At least we have Bruno next, which should be a cakewalk. Most of his team have 0 moves to use against our Ghost-type Haunter, like Hitmonchan only having Rock Tomb, and Hitmonlee having to use Foresight beforehand if it wants to do anything at all. Charizard is also great with its resistance with the Flying type, and it also lends a helping hand with Seismic Toss. Okay, maybe the battle wasn't as free as I said it would be, with even Primeape getting taken out during the fight, but it's still nothing to sweat over. Unlike Lorelei's chat, Agatha is the opposite of Bruno, as she completely walls most of our team, with us being unable to use the likes of Seismic Toss or Sonic Boom, leaving us with just Dragon Rage and Nightshade against her Ghost types, 3/5 of her team. And with Nightshade being on Haunter, which is also weak to Ghost types, it's not really going to be that helpful. Statuses like Toxic are also a big hindrance, as they increase in damage over time. And it's just getting really annoying to just try and live through all of these status conditions, and our luck against Hypnosis is abysmal. Luckily we can use Seismic Toss against the Golbat and the Arbok, but they still manage to do numbers on my team, eventually making it to her last Gengar and taking it out with only Gyarados left on our side. That was one of the hardest battles in the entire challenge, can you believe it? And we only have the small task of the last member of the Elite Four and the champion battle. Those definitely won't be harder, right? Lance's battle isn't too crazy actually, just annoying more than anything. Our own Dragon type helps to soften up the Gyarados and waste a heal on Lance's side, before using our own Gyarados to take it out in the mirror match. Aerodactyl also gets softened up, luckily not boosting with Ancient Power. Lance uses his own Dragonite after Aerodactyl is taken out, us swapping into Electrode hoping for the Static to activate, while using Sonic Boom until Dragonite gets confused from using Outrage too much. But we don't get the status, as I then send in Primeape to get the Seismic Toss KO, and his last 2 Dragonair are taken out slowly, but surely, with the last one giving up and taking itself out with confusion damage. Well, thanks for that. That is a pretty unorthodox way of us getting to our first battle against the champion. But how will we do against him with only these fixed damage moves? So this champion battle is a really big hurdle in this challenge despite our high levels, as it's a 6v6 with healing items on his end of course, and our damage output being next to nothing. So let's begin starting against his Pidgeot, leading with Gyarados to have the Intimidate lower its attack, taking minimal damage as I swap into Electrode, hoping for the status to work again, which it doesn't, because this thing is a useless ball that looks like Indonesia's flag. So I used Charizard instead. The rival used a full restore earlier than I expected, and I sent Gyarados back in for another Intimidate, eventually using Dragonite for the KO. So I used most of my team just for the Pidgeot. As you can see, this is going great. Rhydon comes out, so I send in Haunter, who can only be hit for damage from Rhydon's Rock Tomb, which it decided to not use obviously, because why would you use a damaging move in the champion battle? It feints extremely simply, and with Haunter still in, Alakazam comes out and we land a Nightshade, but send in Electrode to tank a Future Sight. It gets knocked out from it, and Haunter comes back in only to fall to Psychic. Charizard takes a Future Sight of its own, but also takes out Alakazam with a Seismic Toss. But that was not a good series of events there, losing 2 team members. Half of his team is down however, and his Ace Blastoise comes out early. I send in Gyarados for more Intimidate, and to tank a few Hydro Pumps. Dragonite also resists water moves, but we are hardly doing any damage to it. Blastoise runs out of Hydro Pump PP, and with it only having Bite to use, cannot flinch Dragonite due to the ability Inner Focus. Dragonite gets healed for a second time as I send in Gyarados again, and then Primeape for a bit more damage, also resisting the Dark type move Bite. Finally taking out the bulkiest thing on his team, with Exeggutor coming in and using its tactic of putting our Pokemon to sleep. But that doesn't work against Primeape and its Vital Spirit. But Egg Bomb also does massive damage, especially when it hits critically. So a bit of an issue was me accidentally using Struggle with Dragonite as we ran out of move PP. Now please don't get angry with me in the comments about this, it only happened once by accident, and I maybe should have checked its PP on the status screen, but it also does recoil damage, so I hope it cancels out me doing damage to them with Struggle, but also doing damage to myself. Again, please don't cancel me over this, it was an honest mistake. But Charizard gets the KO on the Walking Palm Tree, leading to the rival's last Pokemon, Arcanine. Gyarados has more Intimidation to do to lower the power of Extreme Speed, then sending in Charizard, who eats a Citrus Berry, and that helps us outlast the damage from Flamethrower, allowing us to get one last hit on the Arcanine, and to take it out, beating the rival, becoming the champion, and beating Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green with only fixed damage moves. This is the second time I have done a silly move run in Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, the first one being a pacifist run with only status moves. But beating this challenge in particular was very rewarding to get through, but also really tedious in the latter sections, with how everything just lived on 1 HP magically. And sorry about the Dragonite thing using Struggle, I really didn't know it was that low on PP, but if it does make you angry, leave a comment. Comments are great for the YouTube algorithm. And while you're down there, hit like and subscribe. And there is a video on screen right now that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. It's one of my videos, so I think you'll enjoy it as well if you liked this one. My name is Super123, and I will see you all next time.